forwards or backwards? Or just one? Ooh, I look like Candace every day now.
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk through some summer type books. What am I saying? Okay. In spring, I made a video of 10 books that I wanted to read in the springtime. I don't even want to look back at that video because I probably didn't read like half of those books. But I did want to make a video where I talk about some books that give me summer vibes. I'm gonna recommend some that I've already read, and then I'm gonna talk about some books that I want to read that are giving me 2022 summer vibes. So I think I'm gonna start off with the books that I want to recommend and then talk about some of the books that I want to read this summer. So let's just jump into it, I guess. So the first book that I have read and I want to recommend, that if you haven't read this book, you totally should, and that is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. This is a really cute coming of age story about this young girl, and she's like besties with this girl. I don't remember their names, don't ask me. I'm surprised that this hasn't been turned into like a Netflix movie. I'm like, this would be such a good movie. But anyway, they're besties, and her best friend, it's like super extroverted, and she's like really out there and really fun and stuff, and she's very introverted. So obviously I related to this character a lot. And then right before their summer is going to start, her best friend goes missing, and all she leaves behind, it's like this list of things that she needs to do. And I think the list isn't here. So it's like kiss a stranger, go skinny dipping, break something, like steal something, and do like all of these things. And basically she believes that if she does all of these things on this list, that means that her best friend will come back. So from there, obviously she needs help for some of these tasks. So she becomes friends with like this group of people, and I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. It tugs at your heartstrings. It's so cute. This just reminds me of like high school. And I just really loved this book at the time that I read it. I wonder if I read this again, if I would love it as much as I did then. But this just like screams summertime, obviously. So the next book that I want to recommend that you read this summer is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I know this one has like a lot of very mixed reviews, more recently than before, because I feel like when I read this, everyone loved this book, and I read this about 2 years ago. But this is also the perfect time because in about a month, the movie with Daisy Edgar Jones is coming out, and I'm so stoked to watch that movie. So basically this one follows this young girl Kaya, and you pretty much follow her whole life, and she lives in the marsh. And this one is also set in 1969 in North Carolina, and she was basically like, she raised herself. She was basically left all on her own in the marsh, and she just kind of basically like raises herself, and everyone in her town like always talks about her, how she's like weird and all this stuff, because obviously she didn't really go to school or anything, so she doesn't really have that knowledge or like those social skills. So yeah, and then someone turns up dead in this little town, and they blame her because she's like weird and stuff. So there's like a court case. It's a very slow burn, but I feel like this is perfect for the summer. There is like a love triangle in there. This one I loved. I did read it 2 years ago, so I honestly, again, I wonder if I would love it as much as I did then. But the movie's coming out, so you definitely should read this. The next one, it's like the ultimate summer book, and a lot of people on BookTube have read this book, but that is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. If you know me, you know that this is one of my favorite books of all time. And this book follows a young girl. Her name is Cadence, and she comes from a very, very wealthy family, and her family owns like this private beach island that they go to every single summer. But the book pretty much starts that Cadence has like these really bad migraines, and she can't remember the last summer that she spent with her family, and she knows ever since that summer things changed, but she doesn't know why they changed because she can't remember that summer. So she decides to go back to the island where her family spends every summer, and she goes back and she wants to figure out what happened. And obviously, again, this is one of my favorite books of all time. A lot of family dynamics, a lot of class and politics type of conversations in this book. It's very short, but it packs a punch. So you should definitely read this. This is like the perfect like weekend summer book. This is my most reread book also. So yeah, I recommend this one till the day I die. The next one that I have, I feel like this one just gives me summer vibes because I read this book last year in the summer, and the next book is also the same situation, but that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is one of the most beautifully written books that I've ever read in my entire life. This is obviously Greek mythology, and this one pretty much just follows the story of Achilles and Patroclus, and this is an LGBT love story, and it also obviously has war and all of those things. It's a also very slow burn. It's one of those books that very minor little things are very important, and obviously at this time in like Greek mythology and all that, you know, that's how it was. But yeah, it's just a lot of ancient Greek history and like a little bit of war and just a love story in the background of all of that, and I love this one. It made me cry, and thank you so much to Christina who gifted me this book. So the next book I have, like I said, I don't know if it really gives like that major like summer vibes, but it does to me because I read this last summer and I love this series. So I don't have the first one right now because my boyfriend still has it. He was supposed to read it a long time ago and he still hasn't read it, and that is Sleeping Giants series by Sylvain Neuvel. So this is the second book in the series, Waking Gods. I honestly need to continue the series because I love it. I usually don't love sci-fi like that, and this one is like an adult sci-fi series, but this one pretty much is about the story about like these is a Titanic? Yeah, a Titanic like robot, like pieces of a robot start appearing all around the world. So it starts with like a hand somewhere in the world, and then there's like little pieces of this robot like just popping up all around the world. And this one is told all in interview format, so I definitely recommend the audiobook for this one. It's amazing. It's like a full cast, and like I said, it's like an interview format, so it just pretty much feels like you're listening to a podcast. So I really love this series. The second book, it's crazy. And I feel like for a series that it's only told in like interview format, I didn't think that I would be as attached to the characters or like the story all like that, because it's pretty much just people talking. You don't really get a lot of inner dialogue or like what they're thinking as much, because you just kind of hear what, you know, what they're saying. You don't really hear about how they're feeling. So I didn't think I would be too attached to the story, but I honestly love this story, and the second book is much better than the first one, but the first one is still really good. But yeah, I need to continue this series because I really love this one. The next one that I have gives me summer vibes. This one is a thriller, and I think it's the only thriller that I've talked about in this recommendation portion, and that is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I would honestly recommend pretty much any Riley Sager book, like Home Before Dark, or I haven't read it, but The Last Time I Lied would fit perfectly in this because it's set in a summer camp, but I'm gonna recommend Survive the Night. I feel like this book is kind of hated on, but I love this book. And this one is set in like 24 hours. It's set in during this road trip, and it follows this young woman. I can't remember why she needs to get back home, but she needs to get back home for some reason. She is a college student. She's a film major also, which I loved. That's a really cool aspect of the book, like all the movie references and all that. I thought it was really cool. But yeah, she needs to get back home. I think it's because of her mom. It's like dying or something. I honestly cannot remember why she needs to get home, but she does. And there's like a ride share system at their college campus, and she ends up in a car with a stranger, and simultaneously there is a campus serial killer at her college. So at some point in time during this road trip, she thinks that she's in the same car as the campus serial killer. So that's where the story goes. I really loved it. Like I said, set in 24 hours. There's a lot of like movie references. It's very like 90s, I think. Yeah, this is set in 1991, so it gives like all of the 90s vibes. I truly love this book, and I know that it's hated on. I'm sorry. The main character can be a little pretentious, so maybe that I can understand why some people wouldn't love this book, but I really liked it. So the next book that I have, I liked it. I didn't love it, and I do have some issues with it, but it's like perfect summer read, so I'm gonna put it in this video, but obviously take this with a grain of salt. And that is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley. So if you love like summery books and kind of finding yourself type stories and Italy, you will love this book. And also the descriptions of food in this book are amazing. Like all she does all day is like eat in Italy, to be honest, and she describes everything that she eats, every single thing. So this one follows this she's like an older, maybe like early 30s woman, and her mother just died, and she was very, very close to her mother. Her mother was like her best friend in the entire world, and they had this trip planned to go to Italy. And obviously right before the trip to Italy, her mother dies, and then she still decides to go on the journey to Italy, and then there she falls in love and she eats a lot of food. And when she arrives to Italy, she encounters a younger version of her mother, so a version of her mother that is the same age as her. There's like magical realism in here, obviously, but I can't say much else because I'll spoil it. But yeah, it's very summery. You know, she does all of the touristy things. She eats a lot of Italian food, and I will say the descriptions of the book, the food, it's amazing. And I didn't listen to the audiobook, but I heard that Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls narrates the audiobook, and like the intro, what's it called? Let me see. Like the intro here of the book, it's a Lorelai Gilmore quote, so I'm assuming the author really loves Gilmore Girls, and it kind of makes sense because it's like a mother-daughter type story. So yeah, I didn't listen to the audiobook, but I bet it would be really fun to listen to Lauren Graham narrate this story. So those were all the books that I recommend that I've read, and now I do want to talk about some books that I want to read this summer. They give me summer vibes and all of that. Obviously, in this portion of the video, I haven't read them, so I don't know what some of these are about, but I will try my best to explain. So the first one that I have that I want to read is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This one I want to read because I want to feel the Sleeping Giants vibes in this book, and hopefully I love it as much as I did Sleeping Giants. This one is a sci-fi novel, and honestly, besides that, I can't really tell you a lot. It says a lone astronaut, an impossible mission, an ally he never imagined. I know Andy Weir wrote The Martian, and everyone loves The Martian. Everyone loves this book, and I know a lot of people whose genre is in sci-fi. This was like their favorite book of last year, so I'm really interested to see if I like this as much as everyone else does. But I am scared because I don't read a lot of sci-fi, and this one's like a chunky book, and I feel like the reason why I love Sleeping Giants so much also was the format. It wasn't like just a book, it was like a podcast interview type of format, so I'm scared to read this one, but I'm excited. The next one that I have, it's a romance. My cup of tea is not romance books, but I always try to read one every now and then. And I will say this one I'm excited about because it's Colleen Hoover, and she is the queen of writing. I really, really love her writing, actually. But yeah, the book that I have is Ugly Love, and this one, I always forget if this is the one with the pilot. I can't remember. Okay, so in the back of this book, there's no mention of pilots, so I don't think this is the book with the pilot, but I don't know. But this one seems like it's going to be like a enemies to lovers, and it seems like it's supposed to be like a friends with benefits type of story, but obviously someone's gonna fall in love in this book. Yeah, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't really like these type of books, to be completely honest, but Colleen Hoover, her writing is very addictive, so I will give this a try. But yeah, I thought this was the one with the pilot, but I guess I'm wrong. The next one that I have is a random book that I picked up in LA, and this was a blind date with a book. And I picked it up, and this one is The Road to Rosebend. I'm actually currently reading this. I think I've read like 100 pages of it or so. It's okay. This one's also a romance, and it's about this woman who returns home after many years. I think she hasn't been home in like a decade, to her small town, and her old crush is now the mayor of this small town. And she comes back home, and she doesn't really have a really close relationship to her parents, and she is pregnant also, and she just didn't even tell her parents that she got divorced and that she's pregnant or anything. So she returns home, and people like to gossip in this little town, and her old love is the mayor. So I don't know where else this is going, but it's okay. Like I said, I don't really love romance, but if you like romance and this is your type of story, then obviously read it. But I feel like I wanted to pick this up because it sounded like a Hallmark movie to me, but I've come to learn that I don't really love reading Hallmark type of stuff. But I will try it. I will try it. I will continue and hopefully finish this book. The next book that I have is, oh my gosh, this is like one of my all-time favorite movies, and I've never read the book, and I really want to because I've heard that the ending or some things in the book are completely different from the movie, and that is Dear John by Nicholas Sparks. I just made my boyfriend watch The Notebook with me, and now like I really want to read this. So this one, if you've never seen or heard about Dear John, it's about these two people who meet in one summer, and they fall in love in the span of a couple of weeks. But he is a military man, so he's like, I don't really know much about like the military or the army, but he's like on call, so he gets called to go to war, and obviously she stays home, and they have like a long distance relationship where they write letters to each other, which obviously Dear John, and they have this relationship. I don't know, I don't remember if it's like on and off, but kinda they do for many years. But yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I really want to read the book. And obviously summertime, they fall in love during the summer, so I really want to read it this summer, but we shall see. Okay, so another book that I want to read, I actually bought this one when I was in Chicago with Jan. When I went to visit her, she kind of prompted me to buy it, and that is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've never read a memoir. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I have watched a movie with Julia Roberts, and after I watched that movie, I was so inspired that I feel like when I read the book, I'm gonna like want to quit my job and go to India, and then I'm gonna be really depressed when I realize that I can't do that. So I don't know when the right time to read this is, because I feel like when I'm reading this, I'm gonna want to go like on a solo trip and find myself and all that, like most women do when they read this book. So I don't know when the right time to read this is, but yeah, I've been wanting to go on like a solo trip, even if it's like New York or something, but I feel like, I don't know, the timing is never right, or I don't know, my mom is scared of me going alone somewhere. And yeah, so we'll see about this one, but I really want to read it at some point. Alright, the next couple of books may seem familiar because I just put them on a TBR for Suns Out, Books Out. So if you watched that TBR, it's pretty much all the books in that TBR, to be honest. But if you haven't watched it, stick around. But yeah, the first book that I have is The Simple Wild by Kay Tucker. I want to read this very badly. I honestly don't know what time of the year this is set, but this is set in Alaska, so I don't know how summery that is, but I know it's very, like the last song, it's about this young girl who has to go back home to her dad because her dad is dying. And then there she, like, you know, starts meeting the people in her town, and she falls in love. But yeah, she originally is from Alaska, which is a very rural, like, you have to do everything yourself type of place, but she lived in a city in Canada, so she doesn't know much about like all of that, so everyone sees her as like this little city girl who doesn't know anything. So she has to learn, and she wants to spend time with her father, and she falls in love. It's a very cute kind of coming of age type story. So I do want to read this summer. But yeah, we'll see if I get to this in the end of June. The next one that I have is The Missing by Kirsten Modulin. And this one is a story about these people that disappear. I always want to say that it's a plane, but I know that it's not a plane. I just think of the TV show Lost, but they're pretty much stranded on an island. And that's what this one's about. It's just like a group of people that disappear and they're stranded on this island. It's supposed to be like a thriller mystery. I'm assuming that someone either dies or there's just like a lot of secrets between these people, so I'm excited to read this one also. All right, my camera's like overheating, so I'm gonna go through the last two very quickly. So the next one is The Counselors by Jessica Goodman, and this one is pretty much set in a summer camp, and it follows these two girls that are on their last year, like right before they're supposed to graduate, so now they're counselors. And I'm assuming someone dies. There's blood on the cover, and it's set in a summer camp, and it's very like thriller, whodunit mystery. So I'm super excited. It's giving me like Pretty Little Liars summer camp vibes. So that's what this one's about. And the last book that I have, I'm sorry, I'm like rushing now, is Hide by Kirsten White. I'm terrified to read this because I know Olivia from Liv's Library hated this book. But this one pretty much follows these people, and they are in this game, and the game is pretty much to go to this like abandoned amusement park, and you have to stay hidden for a certain amount of hours. I'm assuming it's like 24 hours or so. It's like a couple of days or something. But then people start dying during this game, so it becomes a very high stakes game. So it's not just about hiding anymore. It's like hide or you die. So I also don't know what the price is, but I know it has to be some good money or something. I don't know. Oh yeah, so okay, down here it says 14 competitors. 7 days they have to hide. Everywhere to hide but nowhere to run, and it's like in this abandoned amusement park, and that is just like all of the summer vibes for me right there.
Not all the books.
Alright friends, so those were some of the books that I read that gave me summer vibes that I think you should read, and also some books that I want to read this summer. I hope that you all enjoyed and you got some type of recommendation from that video. But yeah, let me know what is the first book that you're really excited to read this summer, and like I said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!